Next story. You know, the English business magnate, Richard Branson, it was he who remarked, never take your eyes off the cash flow because it is the lifeblood of business. Well, as a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, he should know this. A cash crunch or cash scarcity, if you like, is a living hell, if you ask me. Organized Private Sector, OPS, has kicked against the decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to limit the withdrawals from the point-of-sales PoS agents. Recall that the Apex Bank had introduced a daily cash transaction limit of 100,000 naira per individual customer per PoS agent as part of new measures to advance the cashless policy in our country. Deep thinking is what we need at a time like this. After all, it is said you cannot make progress without making the right decisions, Ishmael.
Well, I don't really know if the CBN policy is the right thing to do. Why do I say so? In most of the villages across Nigeria, there are no regular banks.
All right.
And so people rely on POS. So if you now say that the cash they can access daily is 100, what you are simply saying is that the cash crunch we are talking about will continue. But one good thing is that, you know, Nigerians will always have a way of, you know, taking care of ourselves when we are faced with these difficult situations. Because about 2 weeks ago, I was engaging one of the POS agents I use around my area in conversation over this cash, you know, crunch. And she told me that, well, for them, that they get their money most times from these petrol stations, breads, you know, sellers, and because on a daily basis, the volume of transaction they make, the 100,000 you are saying they should be collecting is not enough. And one other thing they do these days, I was at a ATM machine, I think about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I saw them with bags. And I was curious. The first 3 people in my front, by the time they collected, they came with about 3 different cards. Now, by the time they were done with their transaction, there was no money for me to collect. So I challenged one of them. I said, come, you are doing POS. He said, when they go inside the bank, that they give them only 20,000, and that 20,000 is not enough to, you know, transact business for the day. Yeah. So for me, I think it's something that should be looked into more holistically and see how it can be dealt with.
BK, so when you reconcile what he has just said with the fact that the CBN said there's enough cash to go around.
No, the facts do not support that claim.
Yeah.
And, that's why the president of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agri, Dele Oye, said the CBN seems to be out of touch with reality. I do not agree less with Dele Oye because I did a bit of research before coming here.
Okay.
And I can tell you that in Okun land, as a Yoruba-speaking part of Kogi State, you know, it's only in Kaba that you have the regular deposit money banks.
Okay.
I was told that in a place called Oduere, there is really a bank that is not really compliant in the real sense of the word in terms of when they close and the services that they render. So Okun land is bigger than Oyo State. I say Oyo State, bigger than Ekiti State.
Ekiti, yeah.
That's Okun land. It's bigger than this, each of the states of the southeast. Yet it has banks, active banks in Kaba alone. Now, when you move to Zamfara State, it's only in 4 local governments that you have banks. That's talking about Gusau, Talata Mafara, Kaura, Namoda, and Shinkafi. That's where you have banks in the entire state. While in the central district, which comprises of the state capital, It is only in the state capital that you have banks. In a whole senatorial district, you only have banks in the state capital. Now, moving on, and of course, there are big local governments like Safe, Maru. Maru is one of the biggest local governments in Nigeria. That's where you have the one of the big forests. We have these bandits. Then Bungudu, no banks. Okay. Now, in the West Senatorial District, you have only Talata, Mafara. That's the only place where you have a bank. The remaining 4 local governments in the West Senatorial District of Zamfara, which includes Bukuyum, Maradun. You will travel 160 kilometers. You will not find a bank.
Really?
Yes. So this is the thing. In the east of Zamfara, only 2 local governments have banks, and that is Kaura, Namoda, and Shinkafi. In Kano, we have 44 local governments.
Okay.
Now, outside of the Kano metropolis,
the old city,
Kano metropolis, the city, not the old city alone.
Okay.
You know, we have places like Nasarawa, where you have Sabongeri, is still part of Kano metropolis.
Right.
Now, out of the 44 local governments, it's only in 5 local governments that you have banks outside of the metropolis.
Yeah.
Actually, the metropolis of Kano, the majority of the local governments, they have a huge chunk of the local governments in Kano. Yes, just like Ibadan, where you have about 11 local governments in the metropolis. So about 29 local governments in Kano State, out of 44, do not have banks. So
and this has been a long time coming.
No, it's been like that for a long time. When our people were being put through the pain of Naira repainting, at that time, that they called the redesign, we told them that people were suffering. Because in a lot of these places, we do not have banks. So these POS operators actually serve the purpose of banks. They call them agent bankers. But our people have seen them as alternative to the banks, because in many of the semi-urban and rural areas, there are no banks. Insecurity has even made it difficult for banks to operate in some of those places. Even in Osun, remember when banks were raided and all that, and those banks had to be shut. It's the same thing that in Esonlu, for example, they raided the police station before going to the bank in the city, in the village, and killed about 9 policemen before raiding the bank. Since that time, nobody has opened a bank there. So we have a situation in which people, if you implement this policy, people will suffer. People want to build houses in the village, in the semi-urban area, in places where there are no banks. They need these POS operators to help them
to fill the gap.
Yes, they will be the ones to provide the cash that they need to pay these artisans. Once you have money, you give them your ATM card, you make the money. So they fill a gap. A gap created by the fact that a lot of our people are
a yawning gap.
Unbanked. A lot of our people are unbanked. And I've given the example of 2 states. If you have to talk about Kaduna, it's the same thing. It's lived in Kaduna for so many years. It's the same situation in Kaduna. Many parts, many local governments in Kaduna do not have banks. So how do our people cope? Especially in those rural communities, those border communities with Niger, how do our people cope? A lot of people still transact business in cash, physical cash. So imposing all these kind of restrictions and all that, the people will only suffer. And at the end of the day, what you want to achieve, you will not achieve it. You do not, there's no way you blame a person who went to a bank and he was told, no, you can only get 20,000 across the border. Or in some cases, they will even say they don't have cash. But they will go to a POS operator, and that one will give them 100,000, much more than the banks are prepared to give. So how did we get to a situation in which there is so much money outside the banking system? We need to address that. I agree that we need to address that. But you must also build on the confidence of our people. the more people find it difficult to access banking services. The more people put money in the banks and find it difficult to take money that they need to take care of emergencies and all that, the more they will resort to these POS operators. Some of them would rather go and keep money under their pillows, under their beds, than use banking services. So we need to address that. If we want people to have faith in the banking system, let us, all of those fears that our people have, let's address those fears so that people can feel confident to put their money in the banks. But the POS operators have become alternatives to the banks, and you can't blame them.
Yeah, because one would have thought that in the heady days of the last regime, President Muhammadu Buhari, we had this cash crunch.
Yes.
Yeah, Ishmael. So you thought we would have learned from that experience and avoid a new one?
Well, I don't really know what happened. You know, I think the thing just happened. Started, I think, about 2 or 3 months ago, and just like he said, you see, the POS agents, they have become alternative banks for our people.
Yeah.
In Ilangon, where I come from, there's only one bank, the entire Ilangon, and that bank is a mortgage bank owned by the state government. So you can imagine. So what it therefore means is that if you are transacting it's not that if you are transacting. Well, I recall that each time when I'm going for Ilea Festival and I need to do a few things around, I'll have to send money to this particular POS agent and ask somebody to go and pick the money there. And you see, the way they do their business is such that they have access to huge, I don't know where they are getting them from, you know. So I think the CBN should find a better way, you know, of addressing
this market women now. They do business with the POS, filling stations. They do direct business with them, and they get return for whatever I give you. The POS operator is prepared to part with some cash as well. The POS operator will now come up with a service charge that will make us happy. But at the end of the day, people see it as better than going to the banks. And you really can't blame them. Now more and more people are not taking money to the banks. That's why you have a situation in which more than 70% of the funds are outside the banking system.
And the idea is not to humor any of you here. I seem to have forgotten how to use the ATM.
You are not the only one. There was a time when we were writing checks now. When was the last time you wrote a check?
It's been a long time.
For anybody.
It's been a long time.
All right. So the debate will continue. We trust the CBN has a way of reinventing itself. So Ishmael and BKO, the experts who say Nigeria is underbanked, knew what they were talking about.
No, it's totally underbanked.
Yeah. All right, we'll go on a short break now. Please stay with us. We should be back very, very shortly.